about that. And so for coaches, if you either don't know what to say, don't know who to talk to, struggle with exploring and connecting with people, this is a coaching skill set. If you want to achieve results in your coaching, you need to be able to do this part too.
The other thing I learned is that when you actually show care after you learn about somebody, you show curiosity, they get more interested in you versus you trying to run after them.
If you're in connection with somebody, your curiosity will be received well, and it won't be judgment. But if you're in judgment with somebody, your curiosity may not be received as well, right?
I know the way to that is actually building real relationships versus a relationship that will directly lead me to a client. Because a lot of times I've worked with like 2, 3, 4 people. It's after the 4th and 5th people where I've gotten a client.
Coaches Nation, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Journey podcast. I'm Daniel Fernandez, and with me is Faisal and San. We are your hosts for today. And today we're talking about secrets of connecting in person. A lot of coaches reach out via messaging or via, contacts in their networks, whatever platforms are on LinkedIn or wherever, or maybe they do content. But a lot of coaches also go to in-person events, whether they're focused on networking or not. One of the things we need to do as coaches is connect deeply with people. And how do you connect? How do you connect when you're in person? That's what we want to talk about today. Faisal, I'm excited because you just came back from an in-person event where you probably did a lot of connecting. And so it's like really fresh for you. And I just came back from an in-person event. It was more of a party. And there were a lot of great people to connect to, but I was running after kids. So I had a few moments to connect with people. But I would love to chat today about like in-person connecting, secrets that you know, and all the stuff that is going through your head. And having a really good conversation about that. And so for coaches, if you either don't know what to say, don't know who to talk to, struggle with exploring and connecting with people, this is a coaching skill set. If you want to achieve results in your coaching, you need to be able to do this part too, because it's just an indication of your communication skills. So let's get into this, Faisal. Tell me about what's top of mind for you when it comes to in-person connecting.
I'll share a story. So I was at an event a few years back, and I was watching a bunch of people. It was a real estate event. They were all approaching this business owner, and I could tell he was very successful because pretty much everybody was going to him. But I didn't know what was the inside outs, and I just watched and observed for a while. And you could tell how people were approaching, and you could tell this person's body language as well. So this successful person, he was standing there, and somebody would come and they would thank him and be like, "Hey, great!" And pretty soon you could actually see the subtle. As soon as the person who comes in and says thank you and they want to connect with them, you could literally see him inching a little bit backwards. Slowly, and it's not obvious to the person in front of him, or at least if she's not a keen observer, but watching it from outside, you could tell he's like moving back. It kind of reminded me of
back a bit.
Yeah. So George Carlin has this joke, and I love his impersonations. If you know him as a comedian, he says, you're in those conversations where you're kind of leaning to the side because you want to go and somebody doesn't stop talking because they're not getting the clues. And at some point you're like 45 degrees here, but they're still there. It's like, what do I got to do to get rid of you? It kind of reminded me of that. And then later on, I actually got a chance to talk to him. I never went up to him, but I was kind of doing my own thing at this event. And I was sort of volunteering for this event. And at some point, I saw him pass by me, and I said hello, and we started talking. And he's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I don't know who he was, so I had no context or frame, or I didn't know what his status was. So I started talking.
That might have helped.
that definitely helped. But I could tell he was a fairly successful person because he had status there, or appearing successful, at least to people. So when I started talking, I was telling him, "Oh, I'm doing this coaching thing." And I told him a little bit about where I came from, why I got here. And as soon as I started sharing a little bit about my story, he opened up. He was actually finding it very interesting. And he started sharing about his son. He's like, "Oh, my son is here. I've been trying to encourage him and everything." He started telling me, he told me his son's story and everything about him. And his son happened to be there, and he wanted to be very supportive and encouraging to him. And I'm like, "Oh, can you point out who your son is?" He's like, "Yeah, when he comes, I will." And then at some point he came and introduced me to his son, and I could tell his son had some challenges And I think he had a disability of sorts, and I got to talk to him as well, and I was very encouraging towards his son. Now, when I left that event a week later, I didn't even reach out to him. He reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I'd love to get on a call and see if we can connect and talk." I never reached out to him, and he ended up actually teaching me a lot. He was I think 8-figure business owner. I got to connect with him a lot, and he actually knew a bunch of people in that community that he introduced me to that led to a lot of really good projects later on the coaching side. But I had no intention of trying to get anything from him. It was just a natural human conversation. And I learned something really powerful, that if you just connect and share at a human level, and you're authentic and you're vulnerable, you're open, you're not like judging somebody by the surface, whether that's good or bad, or you're not bringing that with you, at least in your conversations too much, or that's not amplified, then people tend to gravitate towards you. People tend to understand. And the other side of the other thing I learned is that when you actually show care after you learn about somebody, you show curiosity, they get more interested in you versus you trying to run after them. So that experience taught me a lot, and there was a lot in there, and I kind of used that as a model to continue building conversations. And that happened about close to 7 years ago, around that time.
I love that story, Faisal, because what you did is you just were like a good human to this person, right? Like ultimately, like we want to know if people around us, do we feel that they're good humans to us?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's such a hard thing to describe, right?
It is hard. It's the basis of connection, though. It's like what comes out, and you mentioned a couple words like care, like do that. Like people are always wondering, does this person care about me? Will this person care about me, or are they just here to get something out of me? Right. Like, and a lot of times we all are seeking to get things in our lives. Like, of course, we are seeking to get coaching clients. We're seeking to build business relationships. But sometimes those people are here to help us, and we're not the ones here to help them. Like, you never know who a person is. So don't automatically, and you said no judgment, like don't judge who this person is to you or in your life. Actually show up like a good human and demonstrate curiosity about this person. Another word you use, curiosity and care. And like follow that curiosity. This came up today in our session with some of our CMC Pro members who are coaches. Like the best way to do the work of getting clients is to be curious. You know, like how curious are you? Are you comfortable living in curiosity? Are you comfortable? Does that sound like fun to you? Like actually, I've had fun like finding out things about people. If somebody ever, my favorite one is when somebody tells me they have a PhD. I'm like, oh, tell me about your thesis. Probably because like I know they're an expert on something, and I'm really curious because I'm curious about like what they're an expert on, what I can learn from this person. And that's usually a great connection. People love talking about themselves too. So that actually usually works really well. Not because I'm trying to get something out of them, but just trying to get a connection together, right? And like asking them about themselves is great. Also, Faisal, telling stories, you're a master at this. I could do better in the storytelling area, which is like you started even today talking about with a story. That's really memorable, right? So a great way to connect with people is just talking about a story that seems like, you know, of interest in the moment, right? To that person. Yeah. But then watch their body language. If they're starting to turn 45 degrees away from you, cut the story fast.
Pay attention.
I know plenty of people who don't notice that. So you know, be sensitive to the body language.
The more you breathe, the more you slow down, the more you're going to notice. Otherwise, you're going to be in your head, and the other person's like, oh, well, how do I get rid of this person? But so I want to like model something here. So as soon as you said, oh, you're being a good human, I was like, oh, I feel good about that. But then it hit me. I'm like, you know, after 7 years, like I've made a lot of mistakes since when I was connecting with people. I was the one who judged people for the after, even though that was a pivotal moment. It took me a while to experiment with that, and I'm still experimenting with that and learn how I can show up better. And I still remember showing exactly the way that person that showed up. I went and showed up towards a person, and afterwards I realized, I'm like, shit, I did the same thing or a version of that. And I'm like, this is not as easy as it looks.
That's how you learn.
Yeah, but it's easy to say, and this is why words can be so misleading. Like good human means so many things. Even curiosity means so many things to people. You could be curious about somebody's business and they don't want to share anything about that. You could be curious about somebody's personal life and they don't feel good about sharing that in the moment. So there's a lot of navigating. There's so many subtleties that happen in the process, and mastering that actually requires you to put yourself in those uncomfortable situations where you have no idea what to do in the moment.
Yeah.
And what I'm sharing also is that we feel good about, we've been trained to go towards situations that we feel good about. We haven't been trained since childhood to go towards situations that we don't feel, because usually we've been reprimanded for feeling not good, for doing something that's uncomfortable. We get graded better for doing things that look good to people. Think about your grades. Think about how your parents give you compliments.
Yeah.
So we're
You're
not
rewarded for the
wired.
courage, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and we're not wired for courage. We're not wired to take risky actions. And again, part of it is our biology, but part of it is our social structure. Part of it is the education system. I'm not blaming any of this stuff. It's just that once you go towards entrepreneurship and you start to build a life that needs to be aligned with what matters to you, and you're on a path of growth, purpose, all those kind of fun things that appear fun, but they're not fun usually as you're going through the process, you're going to have to challenge a lot of the ways that you are internally. And that's not fun. And most even coaches think that, oh, the process for I should be happy. I should be feel connected. No, you feel like you're blowing everything every time you go into situations where you're like, you're growing.
You got to welcome those feelings of failure as learnings,
Yeah. And so our cues are very messed up when it comes to these things. Our cues are we're looking for feeling happy. And this is why people say, well, I want to be happy in my relationship. I want to be happy in my work. I want to enjoy I'm like, those are not the right cues. If you're looking for that, you're going to struggle a lot.
Yeah. And actually, even the word curiosity, like you said, it can be like taken too far. And as I think about this with you, I think the way to be curious in in-person connections is actually be curious about somebody's emotions and their emotional state and their body language. If you're curious about those things at a high level, you will be sensitive to where the curiosity of the actual topics should go. You'll notice like, oh, this person is resistant to this topic or might not want to talk about this, but they might actually want to talk about this. You'll start to see these patterns in where are people open and where are they not yet open. And part of a masterful coach's job, just as a coach in sessions, but also in meeting people, is navigating those emotional situations, those emotional intelligence situations. And it's like there's a mountain of emotional intelligence, and like you can be like lower on the mountain or higher on the mountain, but the question is, are you getting better? Are you climbing up that mountain of emotional intelligence all the time? And the more you practice it, the better you get. And it's okay if you fail, because if you're the kind of person who notices that somebody doesn't feel like somebody was offended by something you said, that's good, because then that's something you can internalize and use. If you're a person who doesn't care, well, then that's going to be a different equation for you, right? If you don't care about other people's emotions, you might not, have an easy time, building a business where you have to care about people's emotions every session. So
let me share another story.
Go ahead. I'm curious. Yeah.
I remember I would show up in a family gathering. My intention would be to be curious, but my monkey mind would do something that would catch me off guard every time. So, for example, I would show up with my family and I'm looking at them and I appear like to myself that I'm curious, but actually I'm doing something else. And even exactly as you said, I was curious about their emotions. So I'm curious about their emotions, but I'm looking at them like a psychotherapist. Like
you're analyzing them.
I'm analyzing their emotions, and to me, in my experience, it still looks like I'm curious about them, but I'm disconnected from them. So they don't see the connection. What they see is more judgment, because that's exactly what my brain is doing. Is it's actually
yes. So what you're really pointing out is connection is the operative part of that curiosity of emotions. If you're in connection with somebody, your curiosity will be received well. And it won't be judgment. But if you're in judgment with somebody, your curiosity may not be received as well, right?
And here's how it shows up. So this, when I was at the event, one of the most powerful moments that happened might have not felt powerful to others, but Rich Liddman was on stage, and often, there's a lot of emotion. There are a lot of emotions that happen in events like this. There was a point I broke down, and somebody's on stage, Rich is coaching them. Somebody often, almost always, would be like coming in, give a napkin, or they're trying to be caring towards somebody, and it's a natural human response. But he asked, Rich stopped everybody, hey, and he gave an interesting warning to everybody. He's like, listen, we're all high agency people here, or his assumption at least is high agency people in this room. And I want you to think about this. Next time you're coming to rescue somebody, or in so many words like that, I want you to understand, is that you alleviating their discomfort or your discomfort? And that is a powerful question. And as soon as he thought, I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, that is really powerful, because most of the time when we're trying to comfort others, it's our own discomfort. We're not really connecting with them. We're actually trying to fix them because we feel discomfort.
Yeah.
And so that's another example of, like, it looks like you're being caring and supportive towards others, but you're just
It's deceptive, right? It's deceptively well, you're not being deceptive. It's deceptive to think that you're being caring sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And like, you might not actually be caring about them. You're actually trying to fix your own discomfort. And actually,
Yeah.
we get trained. And I have a toddler, so it's like, I think about when he's having a meltdown. What's my reaction? I think about this all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, am I going to stop the meltdown at all costs? Sometimes my reaction is that. Sometimes I'm like, let him have the meltdown. It's like, this is what he needs to go through and process his own emotions, and more valuable to him to have the meltdown.
Yeah.
Other times I try to distract him, just depends on the situation. But like, the most valuable thing for me to do most times is actually help him figure out how to process through whatever that is. And I mean not doing anything and just letting him melt down.
And as a parent, that's such an uncomfortable situation.
So hard.
All you want to do is just rescue that kid. So
I know.
I was talking to my older daughter, and she actually asked a question. So we were at a South Indian restaurant yesterday for Mother's Day, and we were saying that that's like one of their favorite restaurants. We go there all the time, and they eat as spicy as it gets. They don't care what they eat. And my older daughter, she paused. She's like, "Oh, how come my cousin doesn't eat these foods? Or how come?" Like, she asked like a bunch of kids in our family. They don't eat any of kind of. They eat very plain, simple stuff. Even though our traditional food has spices and other things, not as heavy as the Indian food, but it's close to it. Not close to it. It's somewhere in the middle between that and, let's say, it's Afghan food is somewhere in the middle of Iranian food and Indian food in terms of spices. So, but they're used to it. And I thought about it for a bit. I'm like, and I realized, I'm like, you know what? When you guys were growing up, we just gave you anything. You cried and said all kinds of things. Sometimes you'd be like, I don't want to eat this. I'm like, well, that's all we got. It's up to you. And eventually you started eating it. And one of the decisions my wife and I made is that, you know what, we love this food. I think this food is also healthy, the food that we make versus outside food that tends to be very bland. And like, we'd rather them getting used to home food or foods that are high in dense nutrients. They tend to be much more tasty. And especially on our culture side, they tend to have spices in them. They're good for you. And also, we didn't want to change it. We didn't want to change our lifestyle just because we had a couple kids in the picture. We wanted them to adapt to our life rather than the other way around. And so with that principle came as, like, we had to be uncomfortable and be okay with them not eating in the moment. And as a parent, I understand parents when they sit there like, oh, they're not eating. What if they wake up? Or what if,
which is the opposite of the first few months of the child rearing. It's like, you have to make sure they're eating, because that's like, like part of the body weight and stuff. And like, they have to like,
so there's a lot of fears.
So you condition yourself on making sure and then you have to like let that go and condition yourself on like letting them not eat. It's like, it's the opposite. You have to train yourself. It's like really hard for a parent.
And also, I don't want it to seem like, oh, we were perfect. Like, we made a lot of mistakes when it comes to nutrition and all kinds of stuff in the process. And I understand parents' fears when it comes to that, but the reality is it was very uncomfortable doing that. I remember when it took me back. For you,
right? For you.
For us as parents, because what we wanted to do is give them the plain pasta. Because it was easier for them to eat. We wanted to give them the plain rice. I'm like, no, you're eating this. And we're going to make it fun, or we're going to make it uncomfortable, or this is just going to be the thing. Or we had to keep away every kind of sweet from home, and we couldn't even eat it for a while for them to get used to that. We had to do a lot, and we had to be very intentional in the process. And eventually the outcome of what that is, that was a short-term hard decision for a long-term payoff. Now they eat anything we ask them to.
Yeah, we actually have a very similar, we're getting a little far afield here. We don't have any sweets in the home. Like, we don't have any candy. Like, we literally don't have candy in the home. Because if we do have candy, we will eat it. But more importantly, if we don't have candy at home, they can't eat candy at home. So home is not a place where we do candy or dessert. We have watermelon yesterday for dessert. That was what we did. Every so often we do like let them have other things, but dinner time, home food is home food. It's like, we make it most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's a lot more work, but like, we're investing in the future. And that's part of like, to bring it back to connecting with people in person. What you're doing by connecting, you're investing in possibility. And you don't know what that possibility is because you haven't gotten to know them. As you get to know somebody in person, you have this opportunity to connect at an energetic level that you don't have the same level of energetic opportunity in virtual meetings. You have some, but you don't know where that's going to go. You don't know. It could be that they're exactly the person you've been looking for to help you, or that you're the person they're looking for to help them, or neither. It could just become a social connection. It could become referral. It could become a friend. It could become your spouse. Who knows who you're meeting, right? You don't know. And part of that curiosity is being not just curious about them, but curious, where does this go? Like being excited for and open to the possibilities.
Yeah, and then there's a framing you're doing, and the question that I hear in coach's mind is that, well, or the people who are on the other side of it, when you're building a connection, there usually is like, why is this person connecting with me? There's usually a subconscious question. And what people are most of the time afraid of, or that's what they convince of themselves of being afraid of, is they don't want to be in a transactional relationship. And also for the coaches,
they're afraid of a transactional like interaction, right?
It's transactional, and also even the people who are actually approaching it, they have this subconscious the hidden thing, like this resistance that, oh, I don't want it to feel like a transactional thing. And you can approach it in a couple of different ways. For example, Alex Hormozi talks about it as like every relationship is transactional. It's just a matter of at what is it short-term transactions versus long-term transaction? It's a give and take, or is it you're just going to take from that person? Versus, are you going to make it, oh, am I going to just connect with this person because I want a client? Or the way you described it, Daniel, is that I don't know what the possibilities lie. I'm just connecting with this person. I do have a purpose in here. I'm going to a networking event or something. I'd love to get clients out of this, but I know the way to that is actually building real relationships versus a relationship that will directly lead me to a client. Because a lot of times I've worked with like 2, 3, 4 people. It's after the 4th and 5th people where I've gotten a client, and I didn't know which direction these really. The longer I've been in business and life, the more I've realized I have no idea where any of these relationships are going to lead. I didn't know if Daniel and I were going to sit here, 6 years later, be on a podcast.
Oh my gosh, yeah, who knew? Who knew, right?
Do you remember the first time we sat together? It was
at a hotel at a coaching event.
Yeah, right. And I still remember what you said. You sat beside me, and I could sense your energy. You were more open, and in fact, as soon as you shared, and we had to coach each other, I'm like, well, what will serve you? Do you want to be coach, or do you want to coach me? It's like, oh, I'm open to either. So you said something along those lines, and then I paused and I said, well, maybe if you coach me, that will be good, because you said open. Otherwise, it could have gone the other way around.
Yeah, but we were able to get more of what you wanted because you asked me and I was open. So you figured out how open was I, and then you were able to ask for the thing that you wanted, right?
Yeah.
Which I love that. And you're making me think of like the point of building relationships. I use this phrase a lot to remind myself about why I'm meeting people. And this is really good in person too, which is the 2-word phrase. It's mutually beneficial. And that's broad enough that it can mean anything, but also specific enough that it reminds you that you're not here just for your own benefit. And you're also not here to only for that person's benefit. Like relationships are intended to be mutually beneficial for the most part. The best ones are mutually beneficial, right? Because otherwise, how sustainable is that relationship if it's not mutually beneficial? If it's only benefiting one party and the other party is not getting benefit or is, being hurt, that relationship is not going to probably last the test of time. At least not in the way that could actually create potential or create, new outcomes and results for those people, right? If it's mutually beneficial, now you can get into this generative space where you can build on what you can build, and you can build. That's why, like in a marriage, like the best kinds of marriages are the ones that are very mutually beneficial, and they're open to more mutual beneficiality. Is that a word? Mutual benefit, so that you're always seeking to uplift and uphold the other person, and they know that about you already. Right. And that's how you build relationships.
And also, just I don't want this to go unacknowledged. And just because it's mutually beneficial doesn't mean there won't be hurt. Doesn't mean there won't be misunderstanding. Doesn't mean there won't be conflict. In fact, those are probably necessary to build a common path forward.
Yeah.
And then just keeping that in mind. And so I want to kind of now go to like a framework here. And we've kind of described these things, and I want to kind of share it. What we have talked about is authenticity and vulnerability. So like when you go in front of somebody, being authentic means you're open to positive, negative, you're open to share, you're open to really get to know the person, not specifically for an agenda, but a possibility of a relationship. So there's curiosity involved, not just curious about what can I get out of this person, but curious about the person behind. And I always work through this with my clients, is that, and I always ask them this question, especially parents. I like asking this question because it stumps them a lot of times. Like, so whenever they're trying to support their kids, I'm like, so do you just look at your son as a son or also as a human being?
That's funny.
And they don't know how to answer that. They have no idea. And
Question.
they only look at their son or wife or husband or business partner just in that role. They have a very hard time looking at that person beyond that role. And like, that's where the problem is. And they don't know how to go towards
that. Reminds me of when you were a small kid in school, you saw your teacher every day, but you never saw them outside of school until one day you're at the mall and you see them like, what? What are you doing at the mall? They're supposed to be at school. Like, that's the only role you context you have. Like, what, they're a human being outside of school?
Yeah, right.
Doesn't make any sense. It's like, I remember those experiences as a child. Like, you're like, wait, this person's a real person? I never thought about that.
Yeah, and that's like, maybe we're wired that way, but there's and one of the things I always share with my clients is that I started developing a real relationship with my parents when I started looking at them as human beings rather than my parents. Because as parents, I looked at them with a lot of expectations, a lot of these things, blames, and all kinds of stuff. But as soon as I looked at them as human beings, I'm like, oh, they're a lot like me. They're imperfect. They do a lot of stupid shit. They grow from it, and they've learned. They have some wisdom. Sometimes they don't, but they're just people. And that's exactly how I communicate to my kids, even since they were little. I'm like, listen, Baba's gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna do stupid things. I'm sorry, but I know some things that you don't know. So far, and you're going to learn some things later. So the things that I know, our agreement is that I'll teach you. The things that you learn, you can teach me later on. How does that feel like? And at least the older one is so far good in the process.
Yeah, I actually really relish the times that I can, as a dad, say like, oh, that was my mistake. I mean, I didn't know that. Like, I don't know, or it's a mistake, because I want him to see me as a human, right? Even for my little tiny baby, like, I want them to know that I'm a human in that same way. Like, I want to be able to say, like, I'm not perfect. I don't want you to expect perfection, but you can expect love, and you can expect mutually beneficial relationship, as best as you can.
And that's not easy. Again, we're all experimenting with this. We have no idea what the next generation
is. This is the idea I have in my head right now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in the teenage years or even when he turns 5. Like,
I was on a podcast with Jason Goldberg when I told him, like, okay, here's the culture I came from, and we're trying this stuff. And he's like, now, hopefully, we're going to create a better generation than the last. And he interrupted me, and he said, he's like, you're probably going to mess up your children in your interesting ways, and they're going to have their own interesting ways of growing through that. And I was like, oh, that's probably true. So again, going back to authenticity comes with vulnerability. That needs to be curiosity about the person, the human being behind, not just the role they're in. Care is an incredibly important part of being a leader. And the first story that I shared, I actually cared enough to ask about the person's son. And then I asked him, hey, can you introduce us? And then I encouraged him. That's why he reached out to me. And for example, I just came from this event. I didn't used to do this, but one of the first things that I did was I created a list of 20 or so people that I connected with out of 100. And I sent messages this morning after 2 days of recovering. I had it in my Trello. I started messaging. Well, what do they feel? They feel cared for. I connected with them. Now, I don't know where those relationships are going to lead. They might become clients. They might become business partners. I don't know. And I tell them exactly that. They might ghost me. I don't know. But my job was to show care. And that leads to building a real relationship. And then support. So when I reached out to them, hey, I'd love to connect with you. If I can support you in any area, I'd love to. There's no strings attached. They even know that I help coaches. I've even told many of them, like, hey, listen, I don't know if I want to work with you or ever can work with you. I have some experience, I have a business, and I've told them over and over that I've worked with them, but they have no problem connecting with me. Why? Because they know that I care. It's like, and I want to support them regardless of where it leads. There's an authenticity in the relationship building, and I took action. That action piece, that list that I made was so important. And most of us go to an in-person event, we never follow up, we never reach out, and that's something I didn't learn. In fact, I was horrible at that. I've had to learn. And I suck at that on the personal life. I'm even starting to get better and better at that because of business. I'm starting to get better at that on the personal side.
Yeah. That brings up like another element to this, which I think it all leads to trust, And when somebody says they'll follow up, but they don't follow up, that erodes that trust, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's not taking action or doing what they said they were going to do. No matter how curious you were, like there's an erosion of that trust, right? Even if it's subconscious. And if you are somebody who supports somebody else and you're seen as a supporter of that person by that, you're perceived it by as a supporter, that builds trust, right? Because you're not out for you, you're out for them. In that context, like they know that you're here to make it beneficial to them too, and hopefully they're here to make it beneficial to you. But you can build trust by having that support and taking action. I love that last little bit there because that's beyond just the interactions. It's kind of like an extra frame and like a follow through, right? If you don't follow
and that is the foundation of a business. If somebody if
also true.
Think of yourself as an expert that has specific knowledge that you can support somebody with. But no matter how powerful your knowledge is, no matter how great your tools are, if somebody does not trust you, they don't know you. It's very hard for as human beings for them to connect with you and allow you to support them. So that trust and connection is the emotional side that needs to develop before you go to the, hey, here's what I can support you with. Most people try to bypass that and they try to do that too quickly. And then they end up with either getting ghosted or ignored or not responded. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen to me, but it happens much less than it used to before. And even if it does happen, I'm like, well, that's not my problem. That's theirs. I don't assume that they're doing it on purpose. Something happened in their life.
Yeah, and that actually brings us to the point of coaches. One of the reasons coaches offer discovery sessions is to demonstrate how much you care and can support them, and also that you follow up and you show up, right? Like they need to know those things before they will probably sign up with you. So,
and there's another thing with action. So one action we said, the last point that we said was action towards reaching out to them. But people around you also need to see that you actually take action towards the things that you committed to. That's a very subtle point. So, for example, throughout the event, I had a lot of realizations, and I shared I purposely shared, here's my decision, here's what I'm going to do. And one of the things I'm going to be doing is within all the groups, all the people that I share, I'm going to be sending messages. Hey, I did this thing. Hey, watch my podcast. I did coaching in it. That shows credibility that you're following up with your word. You're moving forward. That it communicates something subtle that hey, you're going to do what you say. You're a man or woman of your word. You're going to show up as you say you do, because most people. And one of my favorite things, whenever my wife gets all anxious about when people say, I'm going to do this, I'm like, listen, 90% of what people say is just words. Let's wait for the action.
Are they doing what they say they're going to do is the question, right?
Yeah.
And that's a way to build trust. And trust is like when you meet people in person, that interaction will lead to some future interaction. And that's where that extra like connection happens.
And if you look at the whole system, even the capitalistic system relies heavily on that credibility. Your whole credit score relies on that in the Western world. What do they watch? They see your track record of how you use credit. What is that? How did you show up in your life? And they don't need to know everything about you. They need to see.
Yeah, actually, people have a trust score, a credit score in their mind about you and whether you are a reliable person who does what you say you're going to do, that you show up, that you are supportive, like they're building up this idea, perception in their head. That's your brand in their brains, right? It's like who you are.
And just so before I kind of somebody's head explodes right now, like, yeah, great. I got to show up perfectly. No, you don't. You're going to screw up so much in all this area. And here's a beautiful thing about whether you're in a coaching session, in a sales process, or connected to people, you have a lot of chances to recover. Usually people don't recover in relationships.
Repair is not that hard.
Screw up thousands of times and they never pay attention. That's true with your kids. That's true with adults in your family. That's true in business relationships. You're learning constantly. And this is what it means to be human. You're a work in progress. We're all that.
Yeah. And how people react to your attempts to repair tell you a lot about them too, right? And how you react to other people's attempts to repair tell them a lot about you. So beyond the first initial in-person connecting, there's all the future connecting that you're doing. And like, how does that go? Like, that's a really, really interesting, addition to meeting in person,
Yeah, for sure. And here's the interesting part that you just shared, that subconsciously we're all judging.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And we're not judging. Our mind is built to discern one thing from another. This is how it has evolved. Our brain is to create differentiations, reference points. How does this compare to? And it happens at such a fast speed that you don't even know how to control it. But as coaches, we learn certain skill sets. We can put pauses on them. We can be curious. And this is why Daniel shared, like, as a coach, that is a skill set. You need to work on it. Skill sets don't just randomly develop. You shouldn't show up as an average person. You should strive to show up to be better, and you can train. This is the part about human mind is incredibly malleable. It can expand in all sorts of different directions. How can you do that?
Let's end with a few questions that will be great questions to ask meeting in person.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you start?
So first question is, what would it mean for me to show up authentically and vulnerably in this next meeting?
No, I meant when you're meeting people in person. Let's get like a little bit tactical here because we're very broad. So what could you ask? What would you say to people? Let's
say to people. Okay.
Yeah, what could you say to people? Like, what are you asking questions? Are you sharing things? Like, what would be really helpfully connected with people? Like, we're going to get tactical so simple. Just a couple of things. Let's do.
That part is the simplest part. What we just described was the hard part. The simple part.
The thing is, the reason why we described that first was because that's a really important frame to come from when you do these things.
So, assuming you have all these frames, you're going to go up to a person in an event and anywhere, and you're going to say, "Hi, my name is Faisal. What's new and exciting with you?" And then look at that person and just be curious. And your mind is monkey mind is gonna be like, oh, your monkey mind is gonna be like, oh, what is this? What is this person wearing? Oh, why is this person saying? Like, it's gonna start talking in the background, and your mind talks for no reason. You're gonna be like, pause. Let me be curious and pay attention. This is where your listening skills as a coach comes in. You don't just listen with your ears. You listen with your eyes. You listen with your body language. You pay attention to the energy. You respond. You don't respond. You just listen. And when that person is done, you're not formulating your next response. You're just asking more questions. Get curious.
Yeah.
Where can I support this person? Where can I connect with this?
I'm remembering something. If you want to know if your monkey mind is doing this to you, just 5 minutes in the conversation, see if you remember their name.
Yeah, right.
You probably can't. Like, honestly, that happened to me the other day. I was like, you just freaking told me your name. And it's like less than a minute later. What's your name again?
And don't be afraid of asking again.
What's that?
Don't be afraid of asking.
No, I've done that. I'm like, okay, so yeah, by the way, my name is Daniel again. What's yours? I like to remind them of my name just in case their monkey mind did the same thing, which it probably did. But like, what I'm training myself to do is like when somebody tells me their name, to use it quickly so that I remember what their name is, at least in that very conversation. And part of this is like also teaching our minds to focus, right? Yeah. And that's part of the thing. But like in conversation, I like to ask them about things that are passionate, like what's exciting. Like I love that question, what's new and exciting, because then they'll tell you what's exciting to them. And sometimes people have a hard time answering that. And like, what's really wonderful in your life? Like, what's like the best thing happening in your life right now? Like, I like that one too. Like, then you'll see.
So, to be honest, it doesn't matter what question you ask. You could say, "Hey, where'd you get that shoes from?" And the key is the energy you create, because you could, if you don't pause in that moment and you get in your head, they will see subconsciously that you're distracted and they won't really answer the question. But if think about a coaching session you've ever had, and you ask any kind of question, the client or potential client will go on and they will kind of formulate their words. They don't know what they're saying. They just go on from one thing to another, and you're just holding space for them. And the more you can hold that space, the more they're going to answer the question as they need to. And the key is you're connecting with them. The point is not the words. We don't communicate with words. This is a very small portion of what we communicate with. Human beings communicate with emotions, with body language, with your eyes, with your attention. And all it will take is break a connection as, hey, hold on. And it happens like with coaches throughout the event. It happens so many times where I'm talking to somebody, and I get it. I mean, like I had to leave the table a couple of times to take a call. I needed to take those calls, but sometimes just coaches, they're on their phone and they're like, because they're not in coaching mode. They haven't paid attention.
Well, they're not here, right? They're not here with you. And so I think that's actually the best tip. When you open it with any question or conversation, or so you talk to somebody, just be there and pay attention and keep space. That is good practice for you as a coach, as a human, as a way for them to feel connected. And then they're just going to take it where they feel like taking, because they feel free to, because your energy and your presence. I love that. That's a great way to end this. It's like, that's the number one tip. Listen.
And you might say that, let me give me more. It doesn't matter, because you don't know where that's going to go. You have no idea where that's in. And by the way, the best coaching sessions you're going to have, one of the first ones is if you don't have attached to your agenda or your framework or anything, you're open to where the client needs to go and you're going to lead them towards what will serve them. It's the same with relationships. We'll leave it at that. We'd love to hear your perspective because you've connected with people. You're a human being. You run into all kinds of people. You might have skill sets that we haven't experimented with yet in all sorts of subtle ways. And you might have built a business that's a little bit different than ours, or you're thinking about building it differently. We'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives on that. Please share. Was there anything that stood out for you that you do in a similar way or a different way, or you completely disagree? You do it differently, and we want to learn from you too. Please share that below so we can all learn from each other.
Yeah. And if you are a coach looking to build your business and you have 10 to 12 hours a week minimum to work on and in your business, and you have a heart of service for clients, we have a community, CMC, Coaching Mastery Community, that is designed to support you in that process. It's not easy and you're not alone. So go to cmc.coach and connect with us. You can join our free Facebook group. You can message either one of us directly and we'll get back to you, and we'd love to support you. We don't know where it's going to go, but we're open to that possibility, whether you become a client of ours or not. We actually just believe in the hearts of coaches that want to serve. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Coach's Journey podcast.
Awesome. Take care. Bye.